Hey guys, King of Charmanders here, and today I bring to you a video on the Heavy Bowgun versus Light Bowgun and the bow. What's the best and what's the worst? And this video analyzes the Heavy Bowgun in comparison to Light Bowgun and the bow. Which one is the best? We've all been looking for it or asking questions like, hey, and now it's been a couple of days and testing it myself, etc. And having a bow and Light Bowgun gold medal and transitioning to this thing, we will take a look at the pros and cons of each weapon type. We will then determine where Heavy Bowgun belongs in the meta. And a big thanks to Blackula, a member of my community, for some of the Heavy Bowgun footage you see here. He's upgraded his Black Diablos Heavy Bowgun to 10.4, and you can see the absolute power it brings to the field. First, we're going to start off with the Heavy Bowgun's pros and cons. Here's its pros. It has high damage capability. That's what you all have been talking about. Oh my gosh, you can take out a 7-star monster with a 5.5. Well, yeah, it does high damage. It also has a variety of ammo types because cluster bomb and then worm ammo. It also has the ability to guard against attacks. So it's the first ranged weapon with a shield, and the shield can guard against attacks. It can also guard against things like roars and Sisiaku's flash. And some monster type Heavy Bowguns do not require recoil down to be maxed out. Usually the play is recoil down 3 and reload speed level 3. But guess what? You might not need that with the Heavy Bowguns. You might only need 1 level of recoil down. And it also has 2 special skills to choose from depending on the monster type. You have Worm Heart and Worm Snipe. And this brings us on to the cons of the Heavy Bowgun. It needs to reload. Magazine's empty, need to fire more shots and inflict more DPS? Sorry, you gotta reload first. And it also has the slowest mobility out of all the ranged weapons, so it's difficult to dodge/reposition. Hey, you want to dodge and put yourself in a better spot? It's going to take like half a second or another second more than usual. In addition, normal reload speeds and below leave you vulnerable to monster attacks. So unfortunately, most of them you won't be able to get a fast reload speed even if you do have reload speed level 3. And speaking of being slow, it struggles with keeping optimal critical range unless it's using spread ammo. This is why my guide, it doesn't really have a critical range, because unless you're using spread, you're not going to be able to do that one dodge back so you can hit with maximum critical range for something like pierce ammo. It just can't do it because it's too slow. And because of all this mumbo jumbo, you have a high skill ceiling to master the Heavy Bowgun. There's a lot of things you need to learn, a lot of things you need to do, but you need to slow down and expect to be slow with the Heavy Bowgun. And moving on, we have the Light Bowgun pros and cons. Its pros, it has average damage ability, but you know what, it makes up for it with mobility, as it has the highest mobility out of all the ranged weapons. And along with that mobility, you also have most monster types for that Light Bowguns can reload fast. And because of that mobility, you are also able to easily maintain optimal critical range. You need to dodge backwards for that pierce shot? Pretty easy, here you go, dodge backwards, bam. And it's the easiest to master out of all the ranged weapons. In its purest form, all you really have to do is swipe and tap, or tap, 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 depending on what you do with a Light Bowgun. So again, easiest to master and definitely something worth looking at. And finally, the special skill can hit across the battlefield, but it requires skill to aim. So if you tilt your phone or you tilt your aim to the correct angle, you can shoot a monster in weak spots and just in all these crazy places and have fun trick shotting the monster. Now that we covered its pros, here are its cons. Just like with the Heavy Bowgun, bowguns need to reload, and it requires reload speed level 3 and recoil down level 3 to max out damage per second. So unlike the Heavy Bowgun, both of these need to be at 3 in order for you to be able to just dish out as much as you totally can. However, even if you dish out as much as you can, it has the lowest total damage output in comparison to the other ranged weapons. So if you're looking for a hierarchy, yeah, you got that mobility, but also overall, you're going to do the least amount of damage just because of its power. In addition, the Light Bowgun lacks high raw damage monster types like Black Diablos. Nightshade Palumu kinda remedied this by giving you a powerful Light Bowgun type for raw. However, in pure essence, for going into technicality, that weapon's actually a sleep weapon. And now we have the final ranged weapon, the bow. And here's its pros and cons. It is the strongest out of all the ranged weapon types for most scenarios. So the HBG does rival it again in some scenarios, but for most scenarios, the bow just wins. And it also doesn't need a reload. Like the Heavy Bowguns, you don't need to reload a magazine or anything like that in order to continue firing. In addition, it has great mobility with a charge sidestep mechanic. And you can perfect dodge while charging as well, so this is really cool. And it also holds the most powerful super weapons in the game, with their charge level 3 to damage level 4 mechanic. I call the strongest weapons in the game super weapons, and they have something about them that makes them stand out from the rest, and they're extremely powerful. Along with this, the special skill, the Dragon Piercer, can sever tails no matter what monster type you're using, so all bows have the ability to sever tails. Unfortunately, no weapon is without its cons, and for the bow, here is its cons. It needs to charge to inflict maximum damage, so tap and hold, and that's where you get the most bang for your buck. You can't just shoot, tap, shoot, and dodge, or do something in between like the bowguns. And because of this, if you miss, it's going to suck a lot, because it's going to punish you and you're going to miss out on a lot of DPS if you are unable to land your shots. With the bowguns, you can kind of get away with it, because if you miss one shot, it's not too bad. Unless you're using your special skill, then that really sucks. It also has a decent skill ceiling to master, so it's not just all point and shoot. No, it's not that simple. Knowing your timings between chargings, etc., and knowing your monster's attack patterns is how you're going to maximize DPS with bows. Speaking of maxing that DPS, you need Focus 5 to max it out, so Focus must be at level 5 if you're going to get the fastest charge to charge level 4 and do the most damage. Moving on, we're going to compare dodging speeds. So as you see right here for these examples, I'm dodging 3 times with all 3 weapons to show off the differences in their speeds. The bow and light bowguns, as you see in these examples, their dodging speeds are very similar. While the heavy bowgun has the slowest dodging speed. Unfortunately, that's the way it is, and one of the reasons why it keeps it from being so good, as we mentioned in the cons for the heavy bowgun. Next up, we're going to compare perfect dodges. So the bow gets +2 to its charge level when you do a perfect dodge, while the light bowgun can reload 1 or all of its ammo when your magazine is empty. And for the heavy bowgun, it reloads 1 ammo and strengthens that ammo set. The bow and light bowgun have many windows to perfect dodge, and the heavy bowgun unfortunately has the lowest perfect dodging window out of all the ranged weapons. However, the heavy bowgun can perform a perfect guard, so it's the only one out of the ranged weapons that have the ability to guard. Next up, we are comparing damage, and we're going to compare damage between all 3 weapon types. To make this fair, we will compare using no super weapons and the maximum reload speed / recoil down / focus required. As we see here, results may vary, but generally the bow is the highest, with the heavy bowgun coming close or in second place. And unfortunately, the light bowgun has the lowest out of all the ranged weapons. This is going to happen for a majority of scenarios, especially the Teostra light bowgun, because that thing is the most disrespectful light bowgun that was ever created in Monster Hunter now, up to this point. Moving on, if we had to rate the best ranged weapons to the worst in order, well, the bow takes the #1 spot as the greatest. It is able to output high amounts of damage with good mobility, and its perfect dodge can be executed with regular dodging and the charge sidestep. So many opportunities to use perfect dodges if you have the skill, and charge sidestepping allows you to position yourself into critical range. It's just too dang good. It's #1 for a reason. On the charts for the most built weapons or used weapons for Hunter ranks 100+, it was the Black Diablos bow, and most of that entire list was actually bows and light bowguns, with bows coming out on top. Usually you'd put the middle in here, but we're gonna go with the worst first. And here's the worst ranged weapon. We saw the best, and now here's the worst, and unfortunately, the heavy bowgun takes the #3 spot at dead last. It outputs high damage, but lacks mobility. So if you're not able to blast and destroy the monster, or you don't have your weapon at 10-5, and you're able to just like absolutely maul the monster to oblivion, it's a drawn out battle, you're not gonna have a good time. Because it has the slowest perfect dodge window and requires you to perfect guard to take no damage if you're up close. It also struggles to maintain critical range unless you are using spread ammo types. However, this exposes you to the monster's close range moveset. And for the last one remaining, the middle child, the only one we have left is the light bowgun, and it takes the #2 spot in the middle. It has an average damage output, but it has high mobility, and high mobility can avoid monster attacks and has many windows for perfect dodging. This is really great because it's short and simple with a light bowgun. Tap, shoot, dodge, reposition, and speaking of reposition, you're able to quickly reposition for optimal critical range. Moving on, we have why the Heavy Bowgun's rating is justified. So it is the worst out of all the ranged weapons. The thing is, the basis of Monster Hunter now is to take out the monster as quickly as possible while taking little to no damage. Heavy Bowgun can do this, however, ranged weapons have in it such an enormous advantage because of their ability to stay out of range of a monster's melee moveset. You take away half or more of a monster's moveset by staying away from them. Heavy Bowgun doesn't really do that. It's going to struggle to maintain its critical range unless you are using close range monster type Heavy Bowguns. Spread, etc. Unless you're using spread or something of that sort. Guess what? You're trying to dodge back and you're trying to adjust. Not going to be a great time for you. In addition, Heavy Bowgun puts you at the highest level of risk and slows your damage potential by forcing you to focus on timing perfect guards. If you're not good at it, you're going to take damage. And any sort of damage sucks, because guess what? Potions and healing items, or you're just going to have to wait. Also, the Heavy Bowgun has small windows to dodge and perfect dodging. So you're not going to move around a lot with the Heavy Bowgun unless you have that timing and the monster's timing really good. Otherwise, you better hope you have a perfect guard ready. And the Heavy Bowguns, I'm not saying they're bad. They can wipe out monsters really quickly with their first salvo. But this requires you to have your Heavy Bowguns at a high grade level.
I swear to you, I'm gonna French fry this little freak.
Let's do it. You shoot my guy and I'll blast him. Let's go. Do it, Quill. I can take it.
No, he can't take it.
She's right, you can't.
Oh yeah, you don't.
And that's the Heavy Bowgun in a nutshell. It's a bigger version of the light bowgun, and sadly the Heavy Bowgun is missing some things from the main series games that could make up its weaknesses to some degree. I really miss straight firing. I really miss sniper mode. But you know what? It's what it is. The Heavy Bowgun is the hardest out of all the ranged weapon types to play. You need precision and patience with little room for error. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying someone can't get really good if you put it out there, but it's just really not ideal. It's slow, it's clunky, and if that's your style, that's fine. But the good thing, the Heavy Bowgun, if you're not the primary target, guess what? It does shine in group hunts, as long as you aren't the primary target, like I mentioned, of a lot of a monster's attacks. Unless you're using defensive reloading, then that would be even worse, because the monster's not going to be focused on you, so you would just go after pure damage. Please do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, and comment for the YouTube algorithm. Unfortunately, the Heavy Bowgun is not easy. It is a very difficult weapon to use, but if you do use it, it can work wonders for you. Hopefully, you're doing everything you can to get the materials you need to upgrade your Heavy Bowguns if you're going after it. Good luck on your grinds, and I will see y'all on the next video.